Otto Weiss, 1883 to 1947. Otto Weiss grows up in impoverished circumstances as the son of an upholsterer in Rostock and learns his father's trade. The family moves to Berlin. In 1913, he marries Berlin-born Marta Konicini, with whom he has two sons. He's a convinced pacifist. He succeeds in avoiding military service in the First World War because of an ear complaint. He serves as a medical orderly instead. He fails to establish himself as a decorator in Berlin. After becoming almost completely blind, he turns to brush making and opens a workshop in 1936. In the same year, he marries Elsie Nast, who helps him later in giving aid to persecuted people. Otto Weiss is a resolute opponent of the National Socialist Party, the Nazi Party. From 1939 on, and most of his employees are Jews. He does all he can to make life easier for them under the Nazi regime by giving them useful advice and providing food for them. He starts organizing hiding places for persecuted Jews and tries to protect them from deportation. Using bribery and deception, he succeeds in saving the lives of many people. The exact number is unknown. After the war, Otto Weiss supports the establishment of a Jewish home for children and old people in the Berlin district of Niederschnasshausen until his death in December 1947 at the age of 64. So these are the types of brushes that they made here. We didn't have factories that, put them together on an assembly line. People had to make these by hand. Labor in the workshop for the blind. In 1941, around 35 people, mainly Jews, are employed in Otto Weiss' workshop. Most of them are blind, and some are even deaf. Only a few have eyesight. Their jobs are allocated by the deployment section for Jews at the Berlin Employment Office. The Gestapo makes regular checks at the workshop. Otto Weiss employs 3 Jews in the office, although this is strictly forbidden. They are warned by an internal bell system when the Gestapo arrives for inspections and hide in a recess under the stairs. In 1942, the blind and deaf Jewish employees in the workshop are arrested and taken to a nearby deportation assembly point at Gross Hamburg Strasse 26. White points out that his products are classified as important for the war effort and bribes the Gestapo officers. He succeeds in getting his workers released. There are plans to deport all the Jews still living in Berlin on February 27, 1943, in a roundup known as Operation Factory. The workshop is forewarned and stays closed on that day, but almost all of Otto Weiss' employees are arrested in their homes or on the street. They are deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp. In the period from March 1943 until the end of the war, there are only few employees left at Weiss' workshop. Apart from 3 non-Jewish workers, there were Jews married to non-Jews or people who have one Jewish parent, as well as several people in hiding like Ing Deutschkron, Alice Licht, Eric Frey, and Chaim and Max Horn. The helper circle around Otto Weiss. Many of Otto Weiss' activities to aid persecuted people depend on support from trustworthy persons. Hedwig Porschutz, a friend of Otto Weiss, obtains food for them on the black market. In 1943, she gives shelter in her apartment to the Jewish twin sisters Marianne and Annalise Bernstein, as well as Greta Seeling and her niece Lucy Ballhorn. Hedwig Porschutz is arrested in 1944 and sentenced to 18 months imprisonment for black market activities. Hans Rosenthal, who is in charge of administering supplies for the Jewish community, uses the information available to him to warn Otto Weiss and his employees that in February 1943, that will be that roundup called Operation Factory. Dr. Gustav Hell, a Jewish doctor, treats George Licht, who was seriously ill at the time when the Licht family is staying in a hideout organized by Otto Weiss. Held is protected from deportation because of his non-Jewish wife, Ing. She helps by obtaining medicines for people in hiding at the neighborhood pharmacies Theodore Gorner, who owns a printing press at Rosenthaler Strasse 26, organizes forged identity cards and gives work in his firm to Jews living in hiding, like Ing Deutschkran's mother Ella. Karl Diebel, an advertising agent, hides victims of political and racial persecution, including Greta Singling and her brother Leo in the workshop basement of Grossbirnstadt 92. These are the people. This is Inga Held, Gustav Held, Hans Rosenthal, and Theodor Gorner. As we're walking through, I don't know if this is left how it originally was or if this is painted for effect, but it's pretty sad in here. I'm going to show you some people and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. This is, we knew about Mary Ann and Annalise Bernstein. Hans Israeliowicz, Ella and Ing Deutschkran, Inga Deutschkran. We have Alice Licht. Remember, she was able to, I believe she was able to survive in hiding. And Alice Licht with her parents, Kathy and George Licht. This is 1919. In this room, we have pictures of Eric Frey and his family. Here's another picture of Eric Frey, Chaim and Max Horn, and George Licht. Failed rescues. Eric Frey. Eric Frey is born in Berlin in 1889. He works in a Berlin bank and fights as a soldier in the First World War. In 1916, he marries Elizabeth, and their daughters Lisa and Anna Marie are born in 1918 and 1922, respectively. My grandmother was born in 1918. In 1935, he is forced into retirement because he is Jewish. His daughters managed to emigrate to England and Palestine in 1939. Their father is refused an immigration permit for Palestine because he has become almost completely blind. In September 1940, he starts training as a brush maker at Otto's workshop. He hopes his new trade will eventually help him to find work abroad. At the beginning of 1943, he and his wife decide to go into hiding. At first, they hide in the basement of the workshop for the blind on Rosenthaler Strasse, later in an allotment summer house. In the beginning of 1944, they find shelter with friends, the Brauer family, at Brunderstaffer 4 in the Berlin district of Tiergarten. 9 Jews were hiding there at various times. The Gestapo discovers a hideout at the beginning of April 1944. All the Jews hiding there are arrested and deported. Eric and Elsbeth Frey are deported to Theresienstadt ghetto on April 19, 1944, and later to Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp, where they are murdered. So this looks like it's a wardrobe as you're walking into the room, but unbeknownst to those who don't know, it's actually very much like Anne Frank's secret hiding place. It's a room where people were hidden. Can you imagine having to hide in this room and make no noise, make no sound, so that you're not found out? This is the brush making machinery. I'm sure that the brush was held in here somehow. And on this side, the spool was used to put the brush material through.